All right, so we are live on the 13th of December 2021, the Quantum Lounge. Today we're going to be discussing the voice inside your head, so I'm going to let Carl take it away and get started and introduce the group, and he can take it from here.
Yeah, hello. Today we're going to talk about the voice in your head because it causes so many problems because so many people are unaware of that voice in the head. And I first really realized it when I read Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now. And then one day I was going through a very hard time in my life and I watched a DVD called The Flowering of Consciousness. And at that time, I was very, very depressed in my life. And then within 20 minutes of this video, I had a realization that all the pain was coming from my own voice. My own voice was telling me how bad it was. And it's not the situation that causes the pain, it's the way you view the situation. So that was about in the early 2000s, about 2002. And from that moment on, I started to become aware of the voice. So I'd start to think about what I was thinking about. And I started to realize that I was nearly always in the past about what happened and what someone done to me, or I was in the future about what is going to happen, a scary future. So I talk a lot about it on my radio show. I'll plug that. It's every Thursday morning at 9 o'clock Eastern time. It's called The Joy of Being. But I talk an awful lot about the voice in the head because it's causing all the problems on our planet right now. So it can cause chaos in your personal life, but it can also cause chaos in the world. So we're all going to have a little talk about that today. So I just thought I'd start with that, and I'll pass it on to another huge Eckhart Tolle fan, Mr. Alan Fisher.
Thanks, Carl. Well, I hope to do a workshop down here entitled Spirituality and Your Identity. And for many people, the voice in their head is their identity, Carl. And it takes some stillness and letting go to realize that there is a voice in the head to start with, and that you are not it. That your identity is really the life force coming through that body and the mind. Some people won't get it, and they will, forgive me for saying, die with that identity without ever experiencing that they are the observer, the witness of the mind, of the self-active mind. It doesn't mean you necessarily stop thinking, it's just stop self-active thinking, the small self. There is actually great intelligence that will come through once you let go of that constant chatter and you realize that the superior intelligence has been running the whole cosmos for all these years, including all the people on Earth. Right now, we're doing our own thing and we are lost in our ego identity, everybody doing their own thing. But if we let go of that and just go with the flow, there is harmony. That superior intelligence knows what it's doing. And I think what we witness here today with the Quantum Lounge people is that there is harmony, there is friendship without the conflict. It is possible here on Earth. Over to the other Alan, Alan Vaughn.
Hi. I wasn't a part of this 2 weeks ago, so I'll do my best to elaborate. I wasn't able to watch it, but based on what I'm hearing so far, I definitely agree. I think it comes down to letting go and letting God, as I've heard once before, about stop holding on to your thoughts and just kind of letting harmony and who you truly are come through. And that's probably what I would contribute.
Who'd you like to pass it on to, Alan?
Say Keith and Anna.
Right. Yeah, so those thoughts in our head, where do they come from? Nobody really knows where those thoughts come from. They come from a source, from the universe. What we do with those thoughts is what really matters. We let those thoughts control us, and we're not in control of our thoughts, then we can go astray. If we go astray, we can really do a lot of harm to ourselves, to others, to the planet. I think to control those thoughts, the best way to do that is to first get grounded and stay grounded with the earth. And people in general are so driven by their mind and their thoughts, and it takes them astray, and they're after external things, not looking within. And I think, like Alan Fisher said, the ego plays a huge role in those thoughts and in those actions that people follow from their thoughts. And I think the best thing we can do, other than grounding to earth, is to not try to control anything. There's too much control, and we need to just let go of control and let go of our mind controlling everything, and let source be in control, God. And the Taoist way is just to let things be. And the Buddhist, like Buddha said, we can't control anything. You can't take anything from my words and believe it. You have to take control of your own thoughts and go and find your own answers. And that's maybe how we start to control our mind, is by finding our own answers and not looking externally so much. Anna?
I've been really fascinated with the power of thoughts for many years, and even studying children, and even just going through a difficult time in my life like Carl did, and started to see how the power of a thought can take a hold of the body physiologically, and how just a thought with a negative emotion can actually cause the body to feel anxiety and even panic attack, which I never knew what was happening to my body, which resulted from a thought that took a negative toll on my body and created a whole physiological response. So I've always been studying traumatology and what causes a thought to impact the body and how disease can happen. And so I committed about 6 years ago to spend the rest of my life studying how I could balance my thoughts and my body and my health. And so Keith and I have joined forces 6 years ago now, and we both journeyed together to find ways that we could heal our mind and our body through time in nature, through being conscious of the foods we eat, through being grounded, through just connecting with Mother Earth. And so I found that the more time I spent in nature, the more my thought life started to be cleansed. And like Alan Fisher was saying, finding that superior intelligence. And that really happened through music as well. And what's really interesting is how music can really take a form in the brain as well. And I'm struggling now with music taking a hold of my thoughts. And when I'm sleeping, my my subconscious thought. I don't even know what part of my brain is awake then, but even last night, singing with Carl, those two songs, Imagine and It's a Wonderful Life, were
Well,
playing in my mind all night. It was unbelievable. So a beautiful thing, but I didn't get a good sleep, but that's okay. So I'm interested, and Alexander Jones has studied this for many years. I'm reading some of his books. He's really mastered the subject of thoughts. So I'm just so looking forward to more and more of the time spent studying The Diamond Way by Alexander Solstice Jones. And so I want to pass it over to him.
Oh, thank you, Anna, for your support and sharing the book. I remember way back, and I think it was 1967, I think it was. I experienced a book, and it was by Alan Watts, and I can't remember the title. I think it was Be Here Now. I'm not sure if that was Ram Dass's book or if it was Alan Watts, but the title intrigued me, Be Here and Now. And I analyzed myself at the time, and I realized I was never in the now. I was not even in the past or the future. I was in some fantasy land. It was just fantasy after fantasy after fantasy. And I realized it was sort of a form of escape. And then knowing that, then I started to meditate and got techniques and started to meditate. And in the meditation process, I understood that there's certain things that are related: the mind, the emotions, the life force, and your breath. If you can calm any one of them, you can calm the other three. If you get anyone restless, then you're just going to be activated in all levels. If somebody pushes your button and you're starting to react and you're listening to those negative thoughts, then the emotions are going to be all over the place. Of course, your life force is going to be scattered, and your life energy is scattered as well. So I learned from meditation that if we can take the life force away from the senses, because what comes from the senses is thoughts of our surroundings, and then that triggers memory thoughts. So I found through doing certain techniques of meditation that taking the life force within and calming the breath, and then calming the mind, and then finally analyzing, or as Carl says, witnessing the thoughts. But in doing that and interiorizing, we get to the point where we realize you experience over time a gap between thoughts. There's the gap when you're not thinking, and then you can discriminate, and then you have a whole different reality. Once I know from my meditation, I can get to a point where the mind is totally still. There is no thoughts, but that takes practice. And when you get to that place where there's that total stillness or tranquility, then you are face to face who you truly are, as Carl said, with that supreme intelligence, or that divine intelligence that's right within us as intuition, as the soul consciousness. And we realize that we're changeless peace, joy, love, all those attributes are right there. They're not absent. It's just getting into that stillness. And then also just observing the thoughts just as an observer, and realizing how much sometimes they're just monkey thoughts. They're just these thoughts that are trying to take us away from our divinity, take us away from our heart states of consciousness. I remember reading one quote that really changed my life. It was by Anthony DeMello, I believe. And he said, humankind has a low tolerance to bliss. A low tolerance to bliss. And I found whenever I went deep in meditation and I started to feel those divine qualities, there would always be a thought right there was trying to sabotage it. There's sabotaging thoughts, not good enough, not worthy enough. And then as you witness those and begin to, experience them, in the beginning, I used to fight them. And I realized that doesn't work. You just let them go. They're not you. That pure essence, that is the divine, that diamond consciousness is who we truly are. And then after working with the thoughts for so long and watching them and just witnessing them, and then you realize you grab onto the positive ones and what power they have if you direct that thought in a positive way, a loving way, in a directed way. So that's my experience with thoughts.
Thank you, Alexander. Who would you like to pass it over to?
Who hasn't? Tim. Tim hasn't talked yet.
Thank you. Yeah, I was working in a group doing some trauma work probably about 15 years ago. The facilitator, she called it stinking thinking. And that always stuck with me, that phrase. And it's just negative thoughts. She was just talking about negative thoughts. But I know for myself, my thoughts were talking to me in a worse way than any other person I'd ever let talk to me that way. And when I finally started to understand who I was, I started to understand what my worth was. I started to change that thinking, and it took a while. It was a process. It didn't happen overnight, but I guess it started with self-love. That's when it really started to change for me. When I started to love myself, the thoughts started to change. And today I can honestly say when that thought comes up, that negative thought, just like Alexander was saying, I can realize it today, and I can get on top of it and say, no, that's not who I really am. And I can counter it with positive thoughts and positive thinking. And it's made life so much easier. Today, I don't mind being in my head. At one time, I would use even drugs to get out of my head, so I didn't even have to listen to what was going on in my head because it was so brutal in there. I was my own worst enemy. And when you get in touch with those thoughts and you can actually, heal those thoughts so that they're no longer, allowing them to control your life, that's when you can truly start to live. And I know for myself, the last few years, it's been a pleasure to be in my head again, and not it's not been torture to listen to myself, talk to myself anymore. And I believe that when all of society can get to that place of healing where we can have that stillness and we can listen to the positive thoughts that are in our heads and not be inundated with all that negative. And it's hard in this world. We get those just even the commercials you hear on the radio are telling us we're no good. That's how they sell us product. So we're constantly bombarded by negative thoughts and negative ideas. So it takes a lot of practice and it takes a lot of discipline for us as humans, just in general, to keep and hold positive thoughts. And it's a struggle in today's world. But for those of us who can find that stillness and can find that positive thought, it does make such a difference, not only just in our own, head, but also through our body. Our body holds on to negative thoughts, and it can react in ways that can make us feel ill, can make our body sore. So it's incredible what thoughts can do to us. The better we can keep our thoughts, the better our whole balance in life will be. And that's what I found to be true for myself. And I'm going to hand it over to Naya.
So for the longest time, I didn't realize that the voice in my head was a voice in my head. It was an energy in my space. I believed that I was the voice in my head, and my identity was rooted as the voice in my head. So with stillness and meditation and the power of now by Eckhart Tolle, that really changed my life around. And then when I started to implement to be here in the now, in the present moment, and let the stillness drive me, I was able to take a step back from the thought space and associate with myself being the perceiver behind the thoughts and not as the thoughts itself. And so when I was able to reach that place, I was able to make better choices. I started to realize that I have a choice or I have an option on whether I want to actually engage with those harsh thoughts or not. And I think that with choice, teaching myself to harness the power of choice, was really helpful on my journey, because until then I was just suffering. I was either anxious about the future, like Carl said, or depressed about the past. And with meditation and with reminding myself that I actually have a choice to either hold an energetic boundary with my thought and not engage with something that's harsh, I started to realize my own power. I started to realize that I could transmute those negative thoughts into the love and light of my own being. I started to realize that I could just observe them. And like I said, like Alexander was saying, I used to fight them a lot. I started to just let them run their course, just right through the ebb and flow, with the understanding that I'm not the thought and I have a choice to not engage with that voice and believe it. So that's been my experience. And even now, it's constant work that I put in every day. Intercept as much of my day as possible with self-awareness, and hold space for my own thoughts, whether positive or negative. Negative especially, I don't try to fight them. I don't try to see my ego as the enemy. I intercept self-love and just let it do its thing, just let it be there, knowing that I'm not that, and I have a choice to step back and just be the observer. So that's been about my experience with thoughts, and it's all been about intercepting self-love, self-awareness, acceptance, and allowance. Being in the field of my stillness, knowing that what comes will go, and what comes and goes is not really me. It's just an energy in my space.
Thank you very much, Nia. And yeah, you guys all made such great points. I was trying to write down things that I resonated with in certain aspects. And it seems that most of the times the thoughts inside of our head, we do believe it is us. And it takes time. And only with a certain age do we come to realize that that's not true. Because, if somebody tells you that and you're 15, 16 years old, it's like, well, no, I know what's going on inside my head. It's me. It's my thoughts. How dare you tell me that that's not me? That's not who I am. And so, and it seems like most of our thoughts, that script that runs is negative. It's always all the worst things that anybody's ever said about us culminating into that one moment. You're not good enough. You're always like this. You can't do that. It runs in the family. It's this or that. And it's just always, we default to the worst things. It's never like a cheerleading type coach thing saying you can do this or whatever. It always seems like it's the negative side trying to prevent you from, taking steps into the unknown. And it's really letting go of that. For me, it's been about letting go of that narrative in the story that I'm telling myself that has been built up of all those years. And now when I have the thoughts inside my head, I immediately think, what is the opposite of this? What's the exact opposite? If the first thought that comes in my head is, oh, you can't do that new job. You're not qualified to do that. You've never done that before. Well, then what's the opposite of this? I'm a blank slate. I can be trained. I have an opportunity. I don't have to break bad habits. So I'm actually one step ahead of somebody who has all this life experience. So things like that. So learning to step outside of it. And like Alan Vaughan said, let go and let God. And that's really a difficult thing to do because we think that we're going to be able to solve all our problems if we think about them enough. And that's not true. We think that we know better than the universe or God or infinite intelligence or the creator. We don't have all the answers. And so stepping outside of that, and I like what Alexander said. He mentioned something about not even being living in the past or even in the future, about living in fantasy. And I was like that too. Like I used to I'd be in class, but I'd be in school, but I wasn't even there present. I was like The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, if anybody's ever read that story or seen that movie. Like I was off making these grand schemes in my mind to escape the reality and not being present in that moment. And so I've always liked the quote by, I think it's Muji, and he says, thoughts and feelings are just visitors. Let them come and let them go. So you guys have all kind of touched upon that. And just being the observer and realizing you don't have to think there's a saying that goes, your best thinking got you here. And for a lot of people, the spot where they are isn't all that great, especially if they look at it from their, the thoughts inside their head. If you keep going down that road, it's just, it's going to end up the same. And it's always like that. So I think that to control things and come from a point of stillness, and I've always liked something that one of my high school art teachers said to me, and I didn't really know what she was talking about at the moment, but as the years went on, I realized she used to say, see the strange in the familiar. And so I really thought about that over the years, and what did she mean by that? And it's like going to look at something with like a childlike sense of wonder. We get to a point in our lives and we think we have everything figured out, but you don't. And so to go in and look at everything and say, hey, wow, this is beautiful. What if what if everything's happening exactly the way it's supposed to be? What if everything is perfect? What if everything is, happening for us, not to us? then that really changes how we look at the world. And we don't have to look at it saying, oh, poor little old me. And we step out of a victim mentality, which usually the voice inside the head is a victim mentality meant to keep us small. So, when things go wrong, we can say, oh, you know what? I told you so. I was right. I knew it was going to go like this. But we lose that sense of that we stop embracing the uncertainty. And that's the beauty of life, is that a lot of times the thoughts that we have and the negative thoughts that we have never come to fruition. So if we can learn to embrace the uncertainty and just be present and still in the moment, that allows life to flow in through us and to us, and we can kind of step outside of the little, like I think it was Alexander said, the little monkey mind thoughts and the constant chatter, and really be able to appreciate life and the beauty of life and all the things that God or Creator created for us to experience as children, and to get out of our minds and know that it's going to be a lifelong process, and it doesn't ever stop. We just get better at dealing with it, so you don't let your thoughts ruin your whole week because something bad happened. You learn to let it go, and it is what it is. And yeah, so for me, that's something I still practice with all the time. And some days are easier than others, but it's really about silencing that voice in the head, and just being present and being the observer, and understanding that life is happening for you. And so I think that's all of us tonight. So I'd like to say thank you to everybody else. Anybody? What about if anybody's got some tips and tricks? I know we touched on like meditation, and Carl with music, and everybody's got their own thing. What's some key points that you can use to silence the voice inside your head?
I've got one, Rob. I said I mentioned my radio show before, but I forgot to tell you how to tune in. It's www.otuneradio.com. And a big one that I say all the time is switch off the negative news, because our brain is like a supercomputer and the subconscious mind takes everything in. So switch off the news, because, and Tim was talking about what thoughts can do. Thoughts can cause disease in the body. So negative thinking can cause disease. Switch off the negative news. Don't hang around with negative people, because everything is energy, And think about what you're thinking about, and maybe just try every hour, think about what you've been thinking about for the last hour, because everything does become a habit, and so does thinking. So that's my little tip.
The
I
little
would
tip that I'll
say,
throw in there is gratitude. I like to use gratitude all the time. I find when my energy's getting low, or the people around me's energy's getting low, I just say, hey, what are you grateful for today? And just that little shift in your thinking of what's not good to what is good often will switch the whole energy in the room. And I like to use that, especially when I'm at work, when I see people starting to go sideways, or their energy's, starting to sink, and just throw that out into the room, and get everyone thinking a little different way. And that's what I like to do.
that's what I was going to say, Tim. Thanks.
Sorry.
Anybody else?
Yeah, when I was doing a meditation class, I just remember teaching a meditation class, one lady we were talking about thoughts, and she said something profound, and there was a doctor in the class. He said, she changed my life. And she just simply said, if a thought comes and I don't like it, I said, that thought is not for me. That thought is not for me. And so she just lets it go. The other thing that's helped me so much is realizing that we don't create thoughts. Thoughts are universally rooted. We don't create them. I mean, if I was to create a thought, I have to know its vibration. I have to know its frequency. If I create it, I don't create anything, or we don't create anything. The universal mind has created them all, the good, bad, and the ugly. I mean, they're all in universal consciousness. So we attract thoughts to us according to our belief and the environment we're in. And I mean, if we're in a negative environment, of course, if we're on the 401 on rush hour and everybody stop and go, and mainly stop, we're going to pick up on the angry thoughts of people. And if we're out in nature, of course, we're going to pick up thoughts of nature and peaceful thoughts. If we're in a bar, we're going to take another set of mentality. And if we're whatever environment we're in, so our environment and our belief system. And the thing is, if we start believing that we're not good enough, if we thinking we're not good enough and we have that thought, of course, it's going to depress us. And we're going to attract more negative thoughts to us. It's like a magnet. But not only that, it's going to attract people to us that's going to reinforce it. So it's just, it's a thing. But for me, understanding that I didn't create this thought and I'm not responsible for it, God is. I'm only responsible for it if I act on it. But if it's in my head, I'm not responsible for it. I can let it go. As Nia was saying, I can choose. I can choose whatever I want. I have free will. I can choose and let it go. Or I can act on it. If it's a positive thought, I act on it. If it's a negative one, I just let it go. So understanding that thoughts are universally rooted, and I'm not responsible. We're not responsible for them. And we can pick and choose what works for us. But most people's thoughts are in their face. They don't have the chance to discriminate at all because they don't meditate, they don't reflect. And so they're just going whatever thought comes to them, And the other thing I say in my meditation class, sometimes we just have a whopper of a thought, like it is so negative. So, whoa. And we just put ourselves down, like this is incredible. How could I think such a thing? How can I even think such a thing? I mean, it's so, and to understand you didn't create it. Somehow you attracted it to you. And most of the time people identify with it and it just puts them in the spiral. But if we can just learn to let them go. So those are the things. Oh, the other thing is silver mind control. Sorry if I keep going here, but these are helpful for me. Put up the sign stop, mentally stop, or cancel is another one, another phrase, cancel. Another negative one, cancel, or just put up the stop sign and then shift the thinking. And of course, as you were saying, Tim, gratitude, just getting the mind in a positive framework. And then we're going to attract more positive thoughts to us. It's, as I said, it's something like a magnet.
Yeah, thank you, Alexander. And you guys all made excellent points. And I think gratitude is a very, very big one because it seems like Carl said with the news and things like that. And, Tim said on the radio, everything's, in commercials, everything's being sold to make us feel like we're not good enough. You need makeup, you need this, you need that, you need the sports car. And so it's easy to feel less than. And so the mind can run away with that. And I like a quote by a guy named Peter Crone. He says, everything happened exactly the way it was meant to, and it couldn't happen any other way because it didn't. So often in life, we think of things when things aren't going our way, we think it's me, it's I'm destined to this fate. It's because of the family I grew up in. It's because of my socioeconomic background. It's because God's punishing me. It's because I didn't do this or that or whatever story and narrative that we've built up to justify why we should be able to talk negative for ourselves. We have to let that go. And like Alexander said, we're not responsible for them. They come from Source or God, the good, the bad, the ugly. And I like the saying, when if I am having a bad thought or a bad day or a bad morning or I can't get out of that fog, I know that it's not permanent, and I just tell myself this too shall pass, and it does. It's like, one cloud doesn't put out the sun. So even if it's, the sun is still there, it's just behind the clouds and it's going to come back out. And that's the way it is too. Sometimes thoughts, just let them come and let them go. And so gratitude is a very, very simple way of silencing the voice in your head, or like meditation, doing things that you love. For me, it's riding my motorcycle or working on music, even just something to just get you out of your head. Watch your favorite stand-up comedian or your favorite comedy, or call somebody that you love, or as strange as it sounds, call somebody that's in a worse position, or if you just call somebody who's terminally ill. You'll have a lot of things to be grateful for, and you'll realize that all the little monkey mind thoughts that you were having are pretty insignificant, and actually it's a big waste of energy to even entertain them. So to just let them go. So anybody else with final thoughts? Nia, Keith, Anna? Yeah, go
I
ahead.
actually have 2 points. One is reminding myself that I'm the one in the driver's seat. I hold the power. I can choose to engage or disengage with, a negative thought or a pattern. That seems to help me a lot. Of course, when the patterns are strong, I still spiral in. But even when I am actually spiraling in them, I at least have the knowing that, like you said, Rob, this too shall pass. And that is not me. It's just something it's just a storm in my space right now, but that's not me. And I still hold the power to step back. If not now, maybe moments later, I can always take a step back and see that it's a storm. So that's one thing. And I've also found that asking myself the question of whose voice is this has been really helpful, because a lot of times we realize that the voices that are actually troubling us didn't come with us to begin with at all. It's either through a societal conditioning or a family conditioning, or it's somebody else's voice. It's coming from something external to us, and but we've internalized that as our own. So I find that just asking myself the question, whose voice is this, gives me a great deal of insights. So that's what I had to say.
All right, thank you, Nia. Anybody else? Final closing thoughts?
Well, one thing that helped me again, and I'm sorry if I'm on again,
That's okay,
but
Alexander. It's
but when I heard this, it put everything into perspective. From a thought comes a feeling. From a feeling comes an action. From an action comes a habit. From the habit comes a character. And most people are cycling on a particular thought. Once it's gone into feeling, it's much more difficult to, once it goes into a deeper feeling, then we have a harder time to shift it. But if we can get it right in the bud, what the thought is, before it's gone into it, if it's a negative one, gone into a negative feeling, then that's very helpful. The other thing is, and what I do in my book, The Diamond Way, we're a diamond, we have everything we need. The only problem is we put mud on the diamond. And what is the mud? It's mainly our negative thoughts. So by mapping it out, and I have an exercise in the book that actually write them out, because most people, they're just cycling in our head all the time, just a continued barrage of thoughts. If you could take the time and find out what those monkey thoughts are and map them out, and I do the circle where it's the diamond, you put positive thoughts inside the circle, put the negative ones outside, and try to understand what is the thought, what is the feeling I go to, what is the action? Do I run to the fridge to engage in food? If I have a negative thought, what do I do? You understand the pattern. But to actually map them out and see them for what they are. The problem is most people fear the thoughts. And I went through this in the beginning, and it was really bad. I was afraid of every thought. I wasn't even afraid to think. I got to that point, every thought seemed negative. But to justly look at them, look fear in the face, and they'll cease to trouble you. If you could really look at them for what they are and actually map them out, I found that is very, very helpful. Because then you can see it for what it is, and then you can work on putting the positive inside that diamond circle that I was talking about.
Thank you, Alexander, and that's well put. And I liked what you said earlier about how when we have those negative thoughts, we attract more of that, and we don't realize that. And it's human nature because we want to feel like we're in control and we want to be right. So it's like when we have those negative thoughts, it's easy for us to say, oh yeah, well, I told you so, that I knew this was going to happen. But of course you did, because like you said, when you're in that space, you keep on attracting. It's like a vortex or a tornado, and you're just sucking all that negative energy towards you, and you're going to attract more of that. And so I really appreciate everybody's input tonight, and thank you all for your thoughts your thoughts on your thoughts. And we're gonna end the recording, so everybody else stick around, but thanks once again. Wave bye to everybody.
Take care, guys.